Welcome, friends. Why did John see the grave clothes in the tomb and believe? This is Granny's GodPod number 66, and I'm using translations from the Bible Hub Greek Interlinear. In my GodPod number 16, I mentioned the idea that when John saw the face covering neatly folded in the tomb, a little way from the grave cloths, he saw and believed. One theory was that it was a Jewish custom that if the master left the table and screwed up his napkin, throwing it down, it was a signal to the servant to clear away. If the napkin was folded neatly and placed down, it meant the master would return. So it was suggested that this was a sign Jesus left, that he would return. This suggestion came from a rabbi, but it is also argued that there is no historical or scholarly evidence to support it. Napkin may not be the best translation of the term sudarion for a small piece of cloth. It is perhaps better said that the wrapping that had been on his head was not lying with the linen cloths, but was folded up in a separate place by itself. The term entolisso, to cause something to be in the shape of a roll, suggests the head covering was rolled up like a scroll rather than folded like a napkin. Even so, the fact that the cloth is there and deliberately placed shows that it was put there on purpose. The question becomes then, why did John write 9 verses of specific details about the grave clothes? Scripture clearly tells us that when John saw the arrangement of the grave clothes, he believed beyond all doubt that Jesus was risen. So the description is important for us too. John 19 verses 39 to 40 tells us that Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea brought about 100 pounds of myrrh and aloes spices and wound the body of Jesus in the cloth wrappings with the spices. The Greek words translated wrapped together in John 20 verse 7 actually mean twisted together or rolled up. It speaks of a fixed position, much like a cocoon. As the 2 men wrapped the cloth around Jesus' body, they poured in 100 pounds of these liquid spices into the wrappings and upon the body. All these spices would soon harden and would cause the cloth wrappings to become an encrusted cocoon around the body of Jesus. The only way a body could be humanly removed would be by cutting the encrusted wrappings. It is relevant that the angel said in Matthew 28 verse 6, "Come, see the place where he was lying." When Mary Magdalene gave Peter and John the news that the tomb was empty, they came running. They saw the empty tomb with their own eyes. They did not see the body of Jesus, but they did see the grave clothes, which were lying in a unique way. John saw the linen cloths lying on the floor of the sepulchre, the word used meaning lying precisely as the body had lain in them. But the linen couldn't lie, excuse the pun. The stiffened cocoon of wrappings remained uncut, undisturbed, but empty of the body that had given it shape. John saw, understood, that the body had been miraculously, supernaturally removed. What a contrast with the resurrection of Lazarus in John 11 verse 44. Lazarus came out of the tomb wearing his grave clothes, his feet and hands being bound with linen strips, and the additional burial cloth still wrapped around his head. Jesus had to tell them to unbind him and let him free. Jesus' resurrection body apparently passed through his grave clothes, spices and all, in much the same way he later appeared in a room with closed doors, John 20 verses 19 and 26, or vanished from sight on the Emmaus Road, Luke 24 verse 31. We all know that when a soldier pierced Jesus' side, John 19 verse 34, water and blood flowed out. In victims of crucifixion, such fluids could also flow from the nose and mouth after death. The cloth that had covered Jesus' head was mandated by Jewish law to soak up any blood. Burial of the blood was required, even to the extent of digging up blood-soaked earth and interring blood-stained clothes and linen. If Jesus had somehow revived and exited the tomb unaided, he would have been unable to leave the grave clothes undisturbed. Grave robbers would have taken the cocooned body and ran the heck out of there. Grave desecrators would have stripped the body looking for valuables, leaving the body and bandages in the tomb in disarray. If Roman or Jewish leaders had taken the body, they would have taken it away already wrapped and buried it somewhere else secretly, and it would have been produced later to disprove the resurrection claims. But the wrappings were still intact, and the headcloth neatly placed still in its folds where the head had been, which told John this was done by divine, not human power. Despite Jesus' many predictions, John 2 verses 19 to 22, Mark 9 verse 31, Luke 18 verse 33, the disciples at first had a difficult time understanding the idea of Jesus' death and resurrection. John has a sudden jolt of realization. He saw the rolled up cloth and realized it meant it was Jesus, alive, who put it there. There are interesting nuances in the Greek language that are lost in translation. Although John was fleet of foot and arrived at the tomb first, he only stooped and took a look in the tomb, but did not enter. The ancient Greek word blepe means to clearly see a material object. Peter then arrives and rushes in. He saw, the Greek word theoreo, simply that the body was not there. But when John entered the tomb, he saw, the Greek word edein, which is to see and understand. That's all for now, folks. God bless. See you next time.